to SBS 200 Introduction to Social Sciences. My name is Juan Jose Gutierrez and I am your instructor for the remaining of the semester. I am going to introduce with this video the concept of religion from a social scientific point of view. And as you know, I'm a cultural anthropologist, so it'll be heavily handed into perspectives of anthropologists. Differently from other recordings of the past, this one will take you through a series of Prezi screens that I'm going to also post on Island. Right below this clip that you're watching, you will see a link that reads SBS 200 Intro to Social Sciences Religion. That PowerPoint or Prezi presentation will give you access to a series of really interesting clips on different religions that you will need for an exercise that we're running as part of this first hour of the class. So make sure you go over the instructions of the exercise and then the Prezi presentation that is, for the most part, presented in my recording today. But again, there are certain clips of films that are embedded in that presentation that it'll be important for you to watch. So I hope you enjoyed this presentation. I think religion is one of the big important topics of our time.
On religion and the religions of the world. It's a magnificent phenomenon to be explored from an anthropological perspective, and a complex one. We're going to be, of course, exploring what is religion in and of itself, its origins, functions, and expressions. So we're thinking about and talking about religion in its more generic way. We're going to be exploring also the relationship that religion has to many different elements in what has been called cultural ecology by certain anthropologists such as Marvin Harris. And we are also going to be talking about social implications of religion and how religions have been used throughout history as an element of social control. So the first thing that I would like to share with you is that I have prepared this presentation with a number of clips that explain or give brief definitions of the different religions that there are in the world. Of course, this is not exhaustive, but at least it sort of represents the largest religions that are there. Each of these religions have multiple practitioners and interesting similarities and differences. I am wondering how many of these symbols you recognize, but this lesson will allow you to explore it and to learn a little bit about it. The Baha'i faith, Buddhism, Islam, Hinduism, Jainism, Judaism, the Wicca religion, which is the pagan religion, the Shinto religion, the religion of the Sikhs, Chinese traditional, and of course Christianity, which is the religion that has the largest group of people behind it, but also has one of the largest internal dispersions, because there's many different iterations of Christianity in the world. So as I normally do in my presentations, I encourage you to take the time to come back to the slideshow presentation and take a look at these brief clips on different religions that I have selected for you, most of which are really good short descriptions, mostly made by people from within the religions, so so that you have sort of a refresher as to what each of these religions are. Okay. So what is religion? For the most part, we will define religion in anthropology as beliefs and rituals that are concerned with supernatural beings, that is, powers or forces that are beyond the human scope and control. Those things that we do not comprehend, that we do not control, and those potential answers to the big questions that we have, and we ask as humans to explain our existence and and fundamental questions, teleological questions, that is, questions as to what is our purpose and where are we going to, where do we come from, and that science is incapable of addressing because it's just beyond the scope of what we can talk about using the resources that we have in terms of experience, which is the realm of science. So religion goes beyond that. There's different definitions that we have had by sociologists and anthropologists throughout time. For example, um, Durkheim and Weber were really interested in the phenomenology, that is the expression of the religion's experience, and how this experience actually had a major impact on the organization of not just the small cultural groups, but large societies and larger cultural groups. Um, at its basic definition, I think we can agree with Rees, which religion would be groups of people that are gathered together to for worship purposes. Um, it, as Turner defines it, it is created around an intense sense of communal spirit, the things that we share with others in a spiritual sense. But it is also associated with social divisions, oftentimes, in different status and worths of individual people. Think, for example, in the to give you an example, in the Catholic religion, you have different types of Catholics. There's the Pope, there's the priest, there's bishops, there's um, secular people, and each one has a role to play within the larger scheme of things, and that happens in every single religion. So as you can see, anthropologists are approaching and have approached religion as a general phenomenon, and they're looking for the things, the traits that are similar across the different cultures. Taylor is interesting in which he sees religion as evolving through different stages, and religion as a human event and phenomenon. So he starts by pointing at animism as one of the most basic forms of religious life, and animism is simply the belief in a spiritual realm, souls and doubles that ultimately derive from this need that we have to explain um, elements that are beyond our daily experience, dreams, and other phenomena. So, in animistic religions, certain elements have a spiritual power and life in and of itself, and you as a human relate to those elements. Polytheism is actually the belief in multiple gods, which has developed in almost every single corner of the planet, and this polytheism has actually different divinities for different aspects: the rain, the war, the sun, the moon, and the day and the night, and so forth and so on. Each of these elements is actually led by this specific being that is a god. Think of the Greek, think of the Mayan, think of the Aztec. They have polytheistic religions. At a given point in time, and in certain regions of the world, there's a development into monotheism. You think, for example, Islam. Islam started around the cube, this central location where multiple gods were worshipped. They have images of gods from all over the place, till this idea that only one god and no more were to be worshipped comes about and then takes over and reshapes the religious beliefs of the Arab people, and then of an immense and large array of people all over the planet, and it becomes a monotheistic religion. And same happens with Christianity and all of the uh, large monotheistic religions of the world. According to Taylor and many other scientists, because of this progression from animistic beliefs all the way to large religions, monotheistic religions, he seems to think that science will somehow take the place of religion as the source of responses to these large questions about life and experience that we have. So that is his point of view that many anthropologists shared in the past, shared today and shared in the past. Other religions that are interesting is in the Pacific Islands, for example, the concept of mana, and I'm not going to address Tabu now, but mana, that believe in an immanent, that is an inherent, an internal supernatural natural domain of life force that can actually be manipulated by humans if you know how to connect with this force. And that was very much so prevalent in the Polynesian and Melanesian areas of the Pacific Ocean. So really interesting religious concept that we're probably not as familiar as with others. So it's very well developed in the book. I hope you're taking the time to explore that with care, because it's really interesting, and I'm positive that many of you are not familiar with some of these concepts. Now, magic and religion come together and have been together for a long time and continue to be together. So magic is more about techniques. It's about manipulating and using those ominous forces that are there, and you control that because you have specific aims. It can be good magic and black magic, which is one intended to hurt and one intended to heal or to support. And magic happens in every single culture, and it has happened in every single culture, and it's usually tied somewhat related to cultural and religious beliefs. Um, Religion also, it's an important social psychological element in the life of people. We do have questions, we do have big questions, and we do have big difficult events in our lives that challenge our understanding of things. It's a question that how can this happen? How is this possible? How can you justify this that is going on? And what is the value of life? What is the meaning of life? Those questions that bring soothe the spirit and brings solace and a sense of control. It's very important to have religion for the vast majority of human beings in the planet. And anthropology has recognized this stance and understanding and origin of religion. Um, it explains why and how things happen, and it also helps people accomplish what they want to accomplish in their existence. Uh, so we can say that religious serve as emotional and cognitive to sort of cope with emotional and cognitive needs of humans. In that sense, it's very with over a billion people out of 7, maybe more today. I don't know. And then Islam is a large one. Hinduism, and then the Chinese. By sheer numbers, the Chinese is just enormous. And then Buddhism, another one that has spread all over the world. All of which are fascinating views of the spiritual. Here's just a little table with those numbers that we just reviewed, but in a little bit more of detail. 1.1 billion for secular and agnostic, which has been growing, particularly in Europe and many parts of the world. 1.1 billion people that are secular or agnostic, whereas Christianity, I say 1.1, I'm sorry, it's 2.1 billion Christians, 1.3 billion Islam, 1.1 secular, and so forth and so on. And then Scientology, which is one of the fastest growing religions in the world, has over 500,000 participants or members of the religion. Okay, let's keep going. So in terms of internal similarity, that is, how dispersed is the religion within. So, for example, let's take a look at Christianity. We know that Christianity has split into many different manifestations and forms. But if you go to Baha'i or Zoroastrianism, these are just much more consistent within. There's not multiple groups. Whereas in Buddhism or Hinduism, you have many more different groups. Buddhism does not have a quarrel with that. Christianity has more militant about trying to be unified, but obviously hasn't that historically hasn't been the case. Okay. Another representation of the largest religions of the world, with Christianity as the largest one, and then Islam is the second largest one. So those are really important religions that seem to be here to stay. We're not going anywhere. Another aspect of religion that anthropologists have explored is to what extent religion enables change. And it has both facets. On the one hand, religion helps maintain social order, but it has been used to create change. And so there's not just one size fits all. It is a force for integration, but it's also a force for change, and that has been seen throughout history, and in almost every single religion that has been the case. One aspect that anthropology is keenly interested in, has explored in many occasions because it's fascinating, is syncretism. So when you have two cultures merging or being in connection, sometimes it's because of colonization, sometimes it's just for proximity. Then you have one or more religion coming together and mixing, and we call that syncretism. In Mesoamerica, you have to this date many aspects of the Catholic faith in Mexico can and should be considered syncretic, in the sense that you can trace back certain components and manifestations to pre-Hispanic America and pre-Hispanic Mesoamerica in this particular case, and just to see how the old ways have continued and are present. And it's just fascinating to explore. Is something that we have seen quite a bit in Mexico, and it's important taking into consideration syncretism. Anti-modernism and fundamentalism comes in all different flavors, but it happens in every religion and at different moments. In Christianity, is going back to the origins of Christianity to make it purer and better, and but it has happened in Islam and in most religions. All right. Now, it seems to be a tendency in recent times to secularism, that is, to a movement, an expansion of having people that are more skeptical about religions and that are finding ways of living their lives in addressing the big questions of life without necessarily having to come to a religious organization or form to do that. I don't know if you were to ask me this question 30 years ago, I would have said yes. The world is becoming more and more secular, but I don't think the data supports that today. And I think, despite the expansion of scientific knowledge and the expansion of the secularist movement, which has indeed expanded, but I don't think it's becoming the norm in the human experience. I think humans will continue to being religious as long as we're human. And I don't know what's the implication, but I just seem to think that is going to be the case. Being myself, in full disclosure, more of an agnostic person than not of Catholic. I was raised Catholic, but I don't think that necessarily my own experience is the one that will apply to the rest of the world. And I think the evidence shows that people remain to be religious, and that religion has very important role to play in the life of humans, and the foreseeable, or for the rest of the time that we're going to be in the planet, whatever that is. That's kind of my personal take on it, just to share something with you. The U.S. is an interesting case of a national space in terms of how it relates to religion. It's very unique because most people came to the U.S. From Europe, escaping persecution and religious intolerance. The laws that generated the origin of this nation actually give a special recognition to religion without making of religion a part of the governmental structure of the country, which is really interesting and neat. I'm sure you have you know this, but it's an important aspect to be given consideration, and as because it is very relevant and interesting to know. It's not the same case in all countries. I can tell you that because I come from and I'm familiar with other countries. But because, as I just said before, the number of people that are secular continue to grow, there's one thing that is interesting, not because people are secular or non-religious, it means that they don't need rituals to mark their lives, and they don't have questions. So more and more you're going to find secular rituals, that is, ways in which we have patterns of behavior to signify changes in our status and life, and it's just a growing event that is important and interesting for anthropologists to explore and understand. I have a table here and in your book, and that shows the religious composition of the population in the US and Canada. Interesting numbers, not the same, but because Canada has the influence. I'm sorry, has the influence of France more than the U.S. There's the Catholic population is way higher in Canada than in the States. All right. This is an FYI. Sorry for the continued coming and going. Okay, so I think I'm gonna leave it at that. And again, I want to encourage you to come back and take a look at these clips that I have selected for you as you explore religion and the meaning of religion in the context of the human experience. All right, see you next week.